Shabbat Shalom. And happy 24th day of Tishrei. There is still a little Tishrei left before we welcome the new month. Sometimes when we meet a couple for the first time, we ask the members of the couple how they met. And sometimes one member of the couple narrates that piece by piece, with the other member of the couple saying, nodding their heads. Sometimes it goes a little back and forth. The story is told primarily by one person, with the other interjecting important or significant details, back and forth and back and forth. And then there are those special occasions where a couple, perhaps together for a month, perhaps a year, perhaps 40 years of an incredible relationship, where each partner completely disagrees with the other about how they actually met and how the relationship came to be. Yet the relationship is still strong as steel. In case you missed it last night, when we were looking at the 5 books of Moses in rolled out spiral form, Cantor Rosen referred to Bereishit, to the first book of the Torah, from a historian's perspective, and reminded us that he does not look at Bereishit as history or as science, but rather, and I'm paraphrasing here, as our ancestors' desire to figure out what is what, to describe the world around them, to call it as they saw it. He reminded us that there are at least two, biblical creation stories, the first 2 of which happen right here in this week's parashah in Bereishit in the book of Genesis. Sometimes Jewish scholars have taken great pains to explain why these stories are really only one story. After all, if God is our creator, then shouldn't there simply be one moment of creation, one story of this all coming together? And other scholars have also sought to understand why there are 2 stories of creation in this book of Bereishit, in this parashah that opens up the entire Torah. Why even did those who redacted the Torah leave 2 stories of creation in the Torah, one after the other? So let's imagine that you are a couples counselor for a minute. And on this side of the couch, really my sides are on this side of the couch is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is God. And on this side of the couch is humanity. So, how did you meet? One person sitting on your couch might tell this story as a 6 or 7 day narrative of difficult, exhausting work. So much work that after 6 days, not only did that partner stop, but that partner felt the need not only to bless the 7th day, but sanctify the 7th day. 2 big things, not even just one, but both. Both because the work of creation itself was so significant, and the actual ceasing of the work from the work was significant. The other might tell the story of waking up in a place called Eden, Gan Eden, and watching gorgeous plants, trees start sprouting out from the ground all around them. And then these amazing animals, creatures in a paradise that they didn't even know should be called a paradise because they had nothing else to compare it to. Tell me more about your story. How have you created mutual expectations in this relationship? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, from the beginning, I wanted to create someone who is B'Tselem Elohim, in my image. Not like photocopier machine image, but someone who could emulate me, who knew that words could create worlds or destroy them, who would notice things, who would do hakarat hatov, express gratitude for all of the goodness they noticed in the world. And someone who, like me, would note that even if you work really hard for 6 days, there has to be time for downtime. They can share with that Shabbat experience as well. And, later I'll give them some more expectations. But for now, this is sort of my baseline. Humanity, what about you? 3 words. Fruit, fruit, and fruit. I'm in this garden, and I'm given 2 commandments. The first is to eat the fruit of every single one of these trees. The second is actually not to eat the fruit of that one tree right over there. You also noticed I was lonely, and so there's something else. Animals, they're adorable. And I got to name them one by one, and I also started to have some feelings. Oh, feelings for me? Well, maybe, but more germane to this, feelings that someone was missing. All right, let's step out of our couples counseling office. It's quite natural to notice that when we're talking about the opening of the Torah, that it makes sense to talk a lot about firsts. The first earthling, the first act of defiance, the first feelings of sexual drive, the first sacrifices to God, and eventually even the first murder are all right here in Parashat Bereishit. But something we don't talk about as much is the first surgery. Today, the American Medical Association opens its definition this way. Surgery is performed for the purpose of structurally altering the human body by incision or destruction of tissues and is part of the practice of medicine. Or perhaps put more crassly, as I have come to understand it, surgery is when we purposefully engage in trauma on the body for the sake of healing. God causes primeval humanity to fall into a tardama, a deep sleep. And during that deep sleep, God fashioned someone else from Adam's side. Long, long, long before modern medicine, God is both surgeon and anesthesiologist. God inflicts a physical trauma on the body of Adam, of primeval humanity, in order to set the stage for human beings not to exist in total isolation, but rather to share in the world with other human beings. Not just the rest of creation, those fruits, and animals with all those names, but with other human beings, to make sure that this Adam and that no Adam would ever experience pain of isolation that couldn't be resolved by connecting with another person. What is this tardama, this deep sleep? A few of our classical commentaries have something to say about it. Ibn Ezra says that there are 3 levels of sleep, and that this one is the deepest. Sforno says that tardama was necessary so Adam would have no fears and no regrets. And Chizkuni says that Adam would feel no pain. We don't hear much from Adam in PACU, post-anesthesia care unit of Eden, but maybe no news is good news. The disrupting of anxiety, of pain, and even memory that are hallmarks of general anesthesia to this day are in full effect in the Garden of Eden. Not only does Adam not talk about the surgery, but there is no longer the Adam that there was before. Rather, with the naming of Chava, of Eve, there is not simply humanity. there is more than one human being. When we read Parshat Bereishit this Shabbos, we are reading the Torah anew, and we are reading it anew at the end of the Yamim Noraim, the penitential season. Many of you were present as we welcomed this season in and transitioned from the month of Elul to the week of Rosh Hashanah, when Rabbi Werber, before Slichot services, talked about some specific verses in the book of Jonah, and specifically talked about the scene when Jonah, running away from the call to preach to the city of Nineveh to do repentance, when Jonah went in the other direction and ended up in the hull of a ship, sleeping deeply, sleeping soundly, freest from anxiety, free from pain, it seemed, the text using the same word that we have here in the Garden of Eden to describe this first anesthesia, if you will. It's only used a few times in the Bible, and these are two of them. When a life-threatening storm is in full effect, somehow Jonah is able to inappropriately self-soothe. The creation stories this week may seem like two, but I think among their many teachings, two lessons complement each other particularly well. The first lesson is the reminder that we are created B'Tselem Elohim, created in the image of God, and that B'Tselem Elohim is not just about how we are perceived, it's not just a description about how we're created, but it's actually a prescription, a mandate for how we are to show up in the world. Not just imitating the highest levels of godliness on Yom Kippur, but to take that lesson year-round into every single week and every single day, to be fervent allies to fellow human beings, not just as a kindness, but because it is expected. Not just as a kindness, but because when we don't treat fellow human beings as created in the image of God, then we diminish God in them, and we simultaneously diminish God in us. And the second lesson, amplified by the Jonah story, is that, all deference to our anesthesiologists, we should strive to leave the work of numbing to God. In putting Adam into a tardama, into a deep sleep, God created the possibility for humanity to be in relationship to humanity. Created the possibility of self-reflection, created the possibility of feeling things beyond loneliness. Now, sometimes those might be things like jealousy and anger, but thank God there are often things like feeling joy and feeling love. Yet, from the baby whose cry is shushed to the preteen boy whose father dies an early death and is told that he must be strong for his family, it seems that there are many times in our society when the responses to our pain are to numb it, to skip over it, rather than to give voice to it. Politicians running for office on empty promises of quick fixes to a very broken system with a lot of pain that ignores people's traumas are not really seeing others in the fullness of their humanity. And the ones who seem more empathic still have much work to do to see humanity of everyone within a country that is so divided and clearly in so much pain. And in our own country, the pharmaceutical executive manufactured opioid epidemic, I think, could only exist in this milieu, a milieu where people's pain is exploited for profit, and where the ideal is simply to numb pain rather than actually feeling it and investigating it. Numbing ourselves out of pain will not make the pain go away. Feeling our loss and feeling our love authentically is what draws us to one another and can ultimately be the greatest sources in our comfort. The first surgery may have been pain-free for Adam, but it was a pathway for human beings to feel what they have felt authentically, to share their feelings with others, and not to repress them. It was a pathway for human beings to exist with others, to deal with temptation, to deal with real difficulties that life brings, because we do not live in Eden. As we link the end of this season of our own renewal with this parashah of beginnings, let us understand authenticity not just as an option, but as a necessity. Let us understand expressiveness as not an inconvenience, but as a gift from others and as a gift we can offer from ourselves. And let us understand that Adam that has now grown to 8.2 billion strong, 8.2 billion of us whose origins were that once primeval earthling, that each of us has deep within us the memory of that once upon a time divine anesthesia, that moment of numbness, of holy numbness that actually has allowed us to be one another's agents of God's love and God's comfort. Shabbat shalom.